Bionicle was LEGO's breakthrough. At least, that's how it's remembered. The unique construction system, the islands of Antigua, and the bold gamble that practically saved the company. But there's one detail almost everyone forgets. Before Bionicle, LEGO had already experimented with the exact formula 3 separate times. There was collectability, storytelling, multimedia experiences, even unique worlds with original characters. And yet, none of these attempts became what Bionicle would. So, what was missing? Why did the formula that saved LEGO fail to create a phenomenon the first 3 times? And how did these experiments end up shaping one of LEGO's biggest successes? Today, I'm uncovering every forgotten construction line that preceded Bionicle, what they got right, where they fell apart, and how all of them quietly paved the way for something far bigger. And what I discovered wasn't just a few weird experiments that turned into a success. It was LEGO's blueprint for creating one of the largest manufactured toy obsessions in history. But before LEGO could develop the strategy that made Bionicle possible, they were first forced to face a challenge that threatened the very way they made their products for the last few decades. And strangely enough, that challenge appeared when LEGO was at its peak. The year is 1998, and over the last few decades, LEGO has reached a level of success most toy companies never see. Its sales reached $1 billion, it was selling millions of sets each year, and nearly every child of the Western world was familiar with the brand. But underneath all that success, a key change was happening in the toy market. Kids weren't just buying toys anymore. They were buying experiences. Just look at the competitors. Pokemon turned collectability into a playground obsession. Tamagotchi mastered responsibility and attachment, and video games offered endless experiences for children to immerse themselves in. And despite their differences, they all understood something important. They weren't just toys, they were obsessions. And suddenly, this mattered more than ever in the toy market. And for LEGO, this was kind of big news. Just think about it, for the last 40 years, LEGO's core experience remained almost the same. The same bricks, the same instructions, an experience that was slowly starting to lose its appeal. Inevitably, in 1998, the company reported its first loss, $27.7 million. Something had changed, and the company needed to understand why. So when executives began looking outwards, they realized something that would ultimately shape the future of Bionicle. The best products weren't necessarily the most innovative toys. Rather, they understood consumer behavior. And it was this realization that would give birth to a new internal strategy, the Craze product. And wow, was it ambitious. LEGO would abandon the roots of long-lasting and timeless play. Instead, they would manufacture a trend designed to explode overnight. Small, accessible, and collectible products children could easily get their hands on and share with friends. Every aspect was fundamentally designed to keep children playing and talking about them. And on the surface, the plan had all the ingredients to manufacture the next playground obsession. But there was just one problem. LEGO didn't actually know what this Craze product might look like. It might sound like a simple question, but for LEGO, it was anything but. They needed to be cheap, easy to build with bricks, yet captivating enough to the point children would actually want them. And with LEGO bricks, the action-packed experience they sought was kind of hard to recreate. Luckily for LEGO, the search for the perfect Craze product had already been paved by another search just a few years earlier, the development of the action figure. At the time, molded action figures absolutely dominated store shelves. They were expressive, collectible, posable. It was almost inevitable that LEGO tried to recreate this for themselves. But they simply couldn't, not for a lack of trying, but because of a system limitation. After all, how do you transform a pile of bricks into something with the playability, movement, and expressiveness of an action figure? But LEGO still wanted to give it a go, and in 1995, Christian Faber, a creative working at LEGO's partner Advance, set out to answer this question for himself. Inspired by the idea of a biological entity composed out of individual parts, Faber began experimenting on a series of concepts unlike anything the company had created before. And the results were pretty strange, a Frankenstein mashup of system bricks, Technic, and even molded parts, all compiled into one action figure. And it was weird, but at the same time, it was innovative. For the first time, LEGO wasn't being used to create a car or boat or castle, it was being used to create something alive. And when Faber pitched the idea to LEGO, they loved it, and greenlighted the development of LEGO's first true construction theme, Cybots. Now at its core, Cybots was still what it looked like, a weird attempt at translating an action figure into LEGO, but in the process, introduced one innovation that would quietly shape every possible LEGO build that followed, the ball and socket articulation system. For the first time, limbs could be posed at 360 degrees, swapped, modified, and transformed with an array of different tools, gadgets, and weapons. There's no denying that this was a radical shift for LEGO. But the real experiment wasn't just limited to the action figures, because Faber wasn't just imagining a toy, he imagined a world around it. Envisioning a myriad of multimedia experiences, characters, lore, environments, and even a planned PC game. In many ways, Cybots was the DNA of what Bionicle would eventually become. The buildable action figures, the construction system, the story-led experience, the characters, the lore, it was LEGO's first attempt at creating an experience. Yet, none of this would matter because before Cybots could make it to store shelves, the product was unfortunately cancelled in development. But despite its cancellation, the ideas wouldn't really disappear, and every single one of them would end up making its way to Bionicle. Cybots entered something important. Action figures could be translated into LEGO. The real question now wasn't if, it was how LEGO was going to turn that into something scalable. Fortunately for LEGO, the Advanced Group already had another project waiting for the company, and in 1999, that project would become Slizer, or Throwbots if you were in North America, a buildable line of collectible robots and vehicles. But for LEGO, it represented something far larger. It was the first real test. Would construction figures even sell? Could they get kids to collect them? And more importantly, would it become the playground obsession they were searching for since 1995? Well, the company was determined to find out, and they had a pretty ambitious plan. Remove every barrier between the Slizer and the child's purchase. See, Slizers was specifically designed to reach a consumer base far beyond the demographic LEGO had stuck to for years. LEGO imagined Slizers appearing in unconventional retailers like kiosks, gas stations, vending machines, anywhere a child might unexpectedly stumble upon one. The goal? Place them in high traffic areas and make them impossible to ignore. But to do this, price mattered just as much, and LEGO would strategically price the Slizers at just $6 a pop so that children could actually afford them. They were impulse buys, the kind a child would spot at a checking line before leaving the store. And although Slizer ultimately stuck to traditional retailers, the plan was still there: remove the friction between every purchase. But to truly create a craze, LEGO would need to lean into one of the biggest toy trends in decades: collectability. The first wave featured 8 biome-themed Slizers: Fire, Ice, Jungle, Rock, City, Energy, Sub, and Judge. Each one had their own design, elemental powers, and unique appeal. The vision? Children would collect every single one of them. In fact, this was a philosophy that extended to almost every area of the toy line. There were collectible discs that could be launched at other Slizers, extra disc packs sold separately, combinatory bottles that involved multiple figures, and even the packaging was designed to be collectible. Everywhere you looked, LEGO was looking for ways to keep children engaged beyond the initial purchase. And although the building system was primitive, the ideas that built Slizer wouldn't stay that way. But perhaps there was one area where Slizers was even more influential: story. Because for the first time, Faber's idea of a multimedia experience finally materialized. The story centered around 8 elemental heroes as they competed in tournaments around Planet Slizer. There was lore, there was characters, there was CD-ROMs, and there was even comics that brought the story to life. And luckily, these efforts paid off. When Slizers hit store shelves, it was an unexpected hit. Kids loved the figures, they were fun to collect, the throwing gimmick was popular, and there was genuine interest in the story. By the end of the year, Slizer would generate over $100 million in sales. For the first time, LEGO had real proof that construction figures could sell. By almost every metric, the experiment was a success. There's only one problem: LEGO wasn't just searching for a success. They were searching for a phenomenon. And while Slizer came close, it never became the playground obsession LEGO was looking for. And unfortunately for LEGO, they wouldn't have much time to refine the formula. Because ironically, Slizer was never meant to be LEGO's greatest game in the first place. It was always designed to be temporary. LEGO would launch Slizer, ride its hype for 1 to 2 years, and when the experiment would die down, they would move on to the next project. In other words, the theme was practically destined to die. And in 2000, the next experiment arrived: RoboRiders. A collectible line of 6 elemental Titan bikes to battle digitally corrupted monsters across the cyberspace. Now, almost immediately, the theme would take a turn for the worst. On paper, it sounded like a natural evolution of Slizer. The bikes were collectible, the setting looked unique, and honestly, it looked fun. But while RoboRiders borrowed many of Slizer's traits, it didn't do much to improve them. The characters had little personality, the lore remained vague, and despite setting up an interesting premise, the line left it at just that, a premise, and didn't really do much to improve upon it. Needless to say, there simply wasn't enough story for children to actually become invested in it. And somehow, the collectability got even worse. Like Slizer, the theme featured fireball projectiles. This time, talisman wheels which could be attached to the bike. And at first glance, it was a pretty clever idea. They took the collectability of Slizer and integrated it right into the model itself. But in practice, the wheels just weren't very exciting. Between the different wheel varieties, colors, and prints, there was over 100 wheels to collect. And what started out as collectible quickly became overwhelming for children. And most importantly, RoboRiders abandoned the core idea of Slizer, buildable action figures. Instead of the expressive robots of Slizer, RoboRiders featured inanimate robotic bikes. And unlike Slizer, these were lifeless and unrelatable to children. Overall, the toy seemed to take a step back from Slizer in nearly every way possible. But surprisingly, the biggest lesson RoboRiders taught Bionicle wasn't actually found in the product itself. It was found in the packaging. Because instead of boxes, RoboRiders were packaged in plastic soda can style canisters designed for easy distribution. Another attempt by LEGO to get into unconventional retailers. But these canisters weren't just containers. They were experiences, and I know how strange that sounds. See, the canisters were specifically designed with interactive elements in mind. When you threw them in the freezer, they would unlock digital codes that unlock exclusive content on the RoboRiders website. The lids could be used as wheels for the Super Combo models, and even the idea of the canister itself was cool and appealing. It was all pretty clever, and if any of that sounds familiar, it's because that's the exact thing Bionicle did. But despite these innovations, the RoboRiders core toy was still at the end of the day disappointing, and it struggled to follow up on Slizer's commercial success. Sure, it was a valuable experience, but not the phenomenon LEGO was hoping for. And the questions still remain: how do you transform a good toy into a playground obsession? Fortunately for LEGO, a new product was already in the works. One that borrowed ideas from Cybots, the lessons from Slizers, and even the failures of RoboRiders. But unlike its predecessors, it would become the phenomenon LEGO was searching for all this time. And its name? Bionicle. Today, it's no secret that Bionicle was a success. Its initial statistics in 2001 speak for itself. 160 million in sales, 70 million units sold, and initial performance as an action figure ranked only second to Power Rangers in 2001. But Bionicle's success raises an interesting question, because up until this point, LEGO had tried everything that made Bionicle successful: the construction figure format, the collectability, the storytelling, the online experiences, but it simply didn't work. So what really changed? What separated Bionicle from its predecessors despite following the same formula? Well, the answer isn't just a simple gimmick or piece of media. It's how everything worked together. The construction figure format with Cybots was dramatically improved with the swinging arm gimmick. The collectability from Slizer became the hunt for the Kanohi masks, and RoboRiders' online multimedia experiences became an interconnected universe. But most importantly, while Slizer and RoboRiders proved construction figures had a market, their short lifespan meant they could never build upon the story and multimedia experiences that they established. And what LEGO realized is that kids wanted something more substantial: a fully developed world, lovable characters, lore they could speculate about, and an experience that not only supplemented the toys, but was the main event. So when LEGO Bionicle began development, they outlined a new strategy: create a universe. The company brought together designers, marketers, artists, and writers of all kinds to create one interconnected world. The result? One of the deepest mythoses ever developed for a toy line, with video games, movies, comics, web games, and even novels. It was a high-risk gamble, but LEGO had faith that it would work, and almost immediately, their efforts paid off. The kids loved it, the parents loved it, and it built cultural recognition that transcended its place as merely a toy line. To LEGO's surprise, they had finally created a phenomenon. And over its 10-year run, Bionicle has went on to produce 4 movies, 8 video games, 49 comics, and countless sets. More importantly, it helped LEGO understand something important. Toys couldn't just be toys. They needed an experience around them. But in the end, this cultural phenomenon wasn't discovered. It was earned, one lesson, one experiment, and one failure at a time. Hello, if you got to the end, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps out the channel a lot. Thank you so much for watching.